Hello, I'm Jim Timilty, and welcome to Beacon Hill Update, a periodic program where I discuss some of the issues up on Beacon Hill and in the community that are affecting everyone. Today I'm joined by two special friends and great police officers. I'm joined by Chief Kyle Hegney and Chief Ron Sellen of Mansfield. Chief, thanks very much for joining me
Thanks for having us.
I know as you know, I'm the chair of Public Safety and Homeland Security up at the State House, had it for 8 years, and I've relied on both of you for many of the initiatives that I push or that are topical of the day. And I think I'm fascinated by police work in general, but I think that some of the new programs that you have initiated in the city of Attleboro and the town of Mansfield, including problem-oriented policing, the POP team, I've heard from several constituents about the wonderful successes that program has instituted in communities. Just wanted to talk to you, Chief, about where you came up with the idea, Chief Hegney, and how it's played out in the city, how it's been received.
Well, we try not to reinvent the wheel in policing, and some of the best ideas are the ideas that are stolen. And so I know Chief Sellen and I both subscribe and deeply believe in problem-oriented policing. As we come up through the ranks together, we developed a close relationship and the same philosophy of policing. So in Attleboro, we adopted across the board problem-oriented policing. And this came from Herman Goldstein. It was his brainchild. And actually, he's been around since 1979. It's been instituted in various police departments throughout the country with great success, and we've achieved tremendous success with rolling this philosophy out. It's a proactive policing philosophy. It's divorced from traditional minded thinking policing, which simply means that you have your mock police cruisers out in your communities and they respond to crimes, and there's supposed to be an omnipresence of intercepting crime as they occur. Numerous studies for over 30, 40 years have proven that traditional style policing doesn't work. It's reactive. It does not prevent crime as they thought it would back when the advent of the vehicle first came out in the 20s. So.
And I think that the recidivism rate that we wrestle with, people with substance abuse problems, it's one of the highest expenses that we have. In my experience on the 2009 OxyContin Commission report, we were talking, if you put everything together, and the latest data that we had when we did that program was the 2005 budget. We were attributing somewhere near 20% of the total state budget when you factor in DOC, Mass Health, Bureau of Substance Abuse Services, that about 20% of our $25 billion budget had in some way directly or indirectly related to substance abuse and then incarceration. And I know your offices are very concerned about people who transition into the community, but you're not just visiting them on the public safety side. It's also the human services side, where if somebody needs services to keep them from relapsing into a life of crime. You've done some of those things, and I think it's shown some successes. It's much better to treat somebody than to incarcerate somebody, and I think that you're not getting enough credit for instituting that, because I think that it saves the taxpayers money, and it's the right thing to do.
And one thing, too, to consider with that is that if you're utilizing 2005 statistics, the overdose rates have almost tripled, I know, for the town of Mansfield and across the board in the state since 2005 as far as percentage-wise. So you can imagine the impact on that number as far as budget-wise goes. Yeah. Plus, to be blunt about it, it's the humane thing to do. It's one thing that POP incorporates a great deal of is empathy.
And you know that if somebody who has been incarcerated, who has a substance abuse problem, it's very likely if they don't get any service or don't want any, if they can be gently nudged in that direction, that the outcomes will change, and that individual will have a better life, and that neighborhood will be impacted. Because as I said, I've heard from constituents about how their quality of life has changed for the betterment, because the officers are very attentive and have an idea of what, not just the reactive, but to be proactive and think about what what could the problems of tomorrow be, and is there a way that we can get, we're going to have to react, but is there a way we can get involved? And I think both communities, through your directions, have instituted the crime scene analyst, so that you have the data to know, what has happened, but it's very likely to happen again. And I think that you as I say, you're changing outcomes.
I certainly subscribe to the philosophy that every police chief, every police department, every community needs a crime analyst. We're more than 90% of our budgets are personnel expenses. What return are we getting for those expenses? We voted at the town council, city budgets every single year, but what return are we getting out of those expenses? Without a crime analyst, analyzing the data that's coming in and turning it into operational, useful information, what return are these communities getting? We don't know. We know what we're getting for the supply and the service part of the budgets, but what are we getting for personnel expenses? We know we're responding to crimes, but are we preventing crimes? Do we know where crimes are? Anecdotally, I say yes. However, if you look at that through the crime analyst, peel back the onion, get to the root cause of the problem, what we call is putting cops on dots, going where the crime is, preventing it to happen in the future. It's actually a force multiplier. So if you can envision a general coming up with a battle plan, he's putting his troops where the enemy are, not geographically spreading them out thin. It's not rocket science per se, but in some ways it may be.
Well, I'm a big subscriber to zero-based budgeting up on Beacon Hill, because just because we did it that way last year doesn't mean that we should do it this year. And I think when the new administration came in, I was a big fan of, look, if you can't justify your regulation or program, then we're going to end it. I mean, it has to have an outcome that the taxpayers of the Commonwealth feel good about. And I think, as you say, you laid it out pretty well about a battle plan. Yeah, you just don't geographically do that. Put it where it works. And I think if we use more of that private sector mentality in government, the taxpayers are better off, and we have a better product.
Yeah, in general, I mean, when you look at what are the traditional measurements for success for a police department, you look at the number of arrests, you look at accident reports, you look at incident reports. What do those generally have in common? They are generally reactive. They have an arrest report, a crime has already been committed, which means that somebody needs to go and you need to arrest somebody. The accident has already occurred. Citations that are written, somebody is already speeding, there's already a problem that exists. What we're not looking at is a measure of performance and as a measure of success within an organization is a level of preventiveness. And that realistically is at the root cause of a crime analyst, of the application of problem-oriented policing, the application of intelligence-led policing. What it all comes down to is that we've all heard in the industry of the fire department, there's the fire triangle. You need three elements basically in order for a fire to occur. It's the same thing with a crime. You need a motivated offender, you need a victim, and you need an opportunity and location. And all you need to do is take out one leg of that stool, and you no longer have a problem. It's about focusing your budgetary resources where they can best be utilized.
Yeah, and I know both of you have worked very well with me on talking to me about doing something up at the State House for police training, because it's very important. It's vital. I mean, the fire service, based on the wisdom of a previous legislature, had an idea where a certain percentage of a homeowner's insurance would go to training, and they have great facilities, they have great equipment, and a great training program. Where, and I think some of the public, when I talk to them, on the police side, we don't have that program. You rely on a line item in the general appropriation, the state budget, which some years can be $2.5 million, and other years can be $5 million. And I think that some people only attribute police training to the push-ups and whatever goes on, the physical requirements to be an officer, which are significant, and you go to an academy for a certain amount of times, and you're tested, and you do the running and so forth, and then they obviously teach you gun safety and so forth. I think the general public sees that, but what they don't see is that you're going to be dealing with a lot of people who, not just in a criminal sense, but if you have a certain disability, you're up to 7 times more likely to be interacting with 911 And there are some people, whether it be mental illness or some other disability, who are going to come in contact with an officer, maybe at a time of certain stress in that individual's life, and you want an officer who goes out there who has the best training. And I find it very sad, and I've tried to change it, but Beacon Hill is an aircraft carrier. Trying to turn that thing around is very difficult. But we've had some successes in elevating the budget, but it's not where I want. And where I want it is that your officers need training constantly for next generation crime, but for dealing with people, as I say, with certain disabilities, and a well-trained officer who responds. And we've relied on local departments to do it all themselves. We haven't found a way. I mean, the police academies in Plymouth and Randolph have been sustained by money from the Mass Association of Police Chiefs, and that's pretty sad. I hope to have, because I think other people don't realize how important it is when, say, there's a traffic accident. Your office has to come out and determine who's at fault. So all of us who, we rely so heavily on you, don't really notice that. And one of my biggest opponents up there is the insurance industry, because I feel very strongly that the insurance industry, which relies on your offices daily for certain reports when it comes up to those matters, should be funding a lot of what I would like to see a statewide program to get you more towards that $8 million, which is what you need, which would only be, I think, half to a third of what the fire service get. Not begrudging anything to the fire service. That I said was the wisdom of certain of previous legislature, but we're it's an effort that's ongoing. It's been 10 years. I hope that I get a portion of my colleagues to agree with me that you're underfunded.
The expectations of the public for their police officers certainly does not match what per officer we spend for training by the state. It certainly does not. Massachusetts is one of the lowest budgeted states for police training. But as society evolves, so does our police officers. And we don't provide them the necessary training, then we're going to fall behind. And we're not going to meet those expectations that the public puts on us. Yeah. We're constantly evolving, society's constantly evolving. We need to have the appropriate training. With that training comes budgetary issues such as backfilling for the police officers in the training for the classes themselves, paying the instructors. But topical, there is so much more that a police officer needs to know, understand, respond to, deal with. Mental health is certainly one of the highest calls for service that we're going on now and dealing with.
It's as you say, it's not about reacting. It's a human. There's a significant human service element to being a police officer, being a police force, because we rely so heavily on you. And I think that another effort that I was involved in the legislature was working to get our Mass State Police to have a non-lethal response to certain people, i.e. tasers or whatever the generic term would be for that. So just wanted to talk a little bit about what you see in the future for tasers in your police forces.
Well, I think that I like to use a broader term of less lethal. Because we have the we have the less lethal, the 40 cal less lethal. Basically, it's the rubber bullet that we also have in the cruisers. As technology is advancing, it's affording us more tools and opportunities to not have to utilize firearms to resolve to end what could potentially be a deadly conflict. And as a result of that, this goes hand in hand with the advances in training regarding mental health, regarding dealing with people with disabilities, because oftentimes it's the first responding officer that gets there first, that immediately has to make a split-second decision as to, okay, how do I need to resolve this? How do I make this scene safe? And affording them those tools is invaluable. To get back to what you said earlier, as far as it's funny that you used the phrase insurance, but I view training as insurance for communities. Yeah. It really is, because it's when you provide officers with that training, you're not only providing a higher level of service to the community, but you're also insulating the community just that much more against future liability issues. Because what is it that communities end up getting sued in federal court for? Failure to train and failure to supervise. Those are the two primary ones that every single lawsuit in federal court you end up seeing. And by training those officers, you're going to probably spend 5 cents to train and you're going to end up saving $5 down the line in potential liabilities, plus the fact that it just provides a baseline better service to the community.
Yeah, we had the successes, and I learned about it in your station, and we've talked about it at length about the possibilities of regional dispatch, but about the success of the 911 bill in 2008. We asked for a little bit more on a cell phone bill for 911 service, very little more. I think it was 1/2 of the national average. I think we elevated it by 40 cents per month, and then lowered the wire line, so the hardline phone, we lowered it, and by just asking for a little bit more from the ratepayer for a service that they certainly, a member of their family that depends on, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 120 million in resources that we can use statewide over the last 5 or 6 years for 911. It's for better hardware, better software, better training for that person, because that really, it's something that affects everybody. As I always say, and I asked for it, we voted it unanimously in the Senate back in 2008, was everybody sleeps beneath the blanket of protection that 911 provides. And it will, and is saving lives, because we've done better. If we can have that, if we can do that same model with training, because now with technology, I mean, think of where we've gone just in our own personal use with personal computers, with our cell phones. I mean, they're computers now. Think of what we've done, and you're going to need, for the next generation policing, you're going to need the resources to upgrade your technology and upgrade the training.
I think the less than lethal advancements are going to come fast and furious, and I say that because the military is now looking heavily into less than lethal. And the military is usually the first to research, first to get, and first to implement. And everything in every industry across the gamut of industries falls down to the rest of us. So if they're researching it, the advancements are going to go that much further. So we're going to see some very unique products come out in the future regarding less than lethal. But I think every police officer should have a taser. I think the de-escalation efforts with a taser versus going straight to your firearm is common sense. The last 3-4 shootings in Attleboro could have been prevented if we had tasers. Now, since we've implemented tasers, we haven't had a shooting. Why? Because we were able to de-escalate the situation, and that's person with either knives, clubs, aggressive manners, whatever have you. We deploy those tasers, it saves a life, we get them the resources they need, whether it be mental health or other type of counseling or opiate addiction, whatever they're on, that makes them progress to that manner and state that they're going to act out and escalate the situation to deadly force, that we can bring it now back down to less than lethal deadly force.
Well, now that the weather's kind of changing and more people are inside and not outside, wanted to talk to you a little bit about senior safety inside the home, particularly with some of the people who, the less than great people who are out there looking to scam certain people, using the phone or outside in front of a certain store, soliciting money for maybe not the greatest purpose. You just had a wonderful success in the town of Mansfield, Detective Ellsworth, with a gentleman who was in front of Stop and Shop. So just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what your next plans are in keeping seniors safe in their home.
Well, I think that the first and foremost when it comes to senior safety is communication. What we've begun doing now is next week we're going to be having coffee with the seniors at the Council on Aging, and I think that keeping that open line of communication, giving them somebody that they can talk to, and a voice that and give them a voice and an ear that will listen to what they have to say and be able to provide feedback is critical, because these scammers, they come up in very odd situations, and they may knock at the door, they may crop up with a phone calls, and they prey on the generosity of our seniors a great deal. And knowing who is calling, knowing who is knocking on doors, knowing when they're doing so, is a critical piece of information for us, so that we can try and head these off before the seniors become victims.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you, gentlemen, enough. As I always like to say, if I keep you too long in a meeting, I'm not keeping the people safe. I got to get you. You guys prefer to be in the station and out on the street, not just talking about these things. But as I say, wildly interested. I've enjoyed our friendship, and I think our collaboration has made things a little bit better. So, like to thank you very much for joining me on Beacon Hill Update. I hope you found the program interesting. And I'm Jim Timilty. See you next time. Thank you.